Basically, the NSU has estimated that the prevalence of classical Scrapie in the U.S. in last fiscal year was less than 0.03%. And the last estimate before that was in 2002-03, and it was estimated at 0.2%. A total decrease over those years of 85%. Fairly significant. The current rate of progress, they expect that the prevalence to be at or near zero by 2017. So we are making progress. 90% decrease in the percent positive blackface sheep sampled at slaughter since the slaughter program started in FY03, and a 42% decrease between 09 and 10. So there's 30% fewer newly identified infected and source flocks in FY 2010 compared to FY 09. And if you don't know, the federal fiscal year is 1st of October to the end of September. So this is some of last year's stats. So here's the actual infected and source flocks. That probably shows up a lot better on the computer that was produced on. But anyway, here's the infected and source flocks by year from 97 to this year. So here's the infected and source flocks. This is the newly discovered infected and source flocks by fiscal year, federal fiscal year. And you can see that we had a pretty good spike and then a decrease. Probably the spike is related to increased surveillance, and then the decrease is because we started to find those flocks and get rid of them. So here's last year's. Keep in mind, this is FY 210. This is last year's new infected and source flocks. 12 of each, 12 source flocks, 12 infected flocks, and this is where they were identified. The darker the color, the more flocks identified. The largest number was 5 in Iowa. And this is this year, since October 1 of 2010. This is so half a year. And so we've got 6 new source flocks and 2 infected flocks. So here's the open statuses. These are the flocks that are still under investigation. And so their status is still open as of February. So there's 6 source flocks, 3 infected flocks that have the investigation has not been finished on these. So here's the confirmed Scrapie cases last year, 2010 fiscal year. 72 classical Scrapie cases and 5 NOR 98-like Scrapie cases. Of these 72, 53 were field cases and 24 were discovered at slaughter. And the slaughter cases are keyed to the state that their ID tag was from, not the state where they were collected. And this is this year's, since 1 October, as of February 28th. And so we have 11 classical Scrapie cases and 1 NOR 98. Again, compare that to total last year, 72 classical Scrapie for an entire year. Halfway through the year, we're at 11. So maybe we're even reducing more this year. So this includes 6 field and 6 slaughter cases. And the asterisk is the NOR 98 case. There was one discovered in California. And here's a summary of the NOR 98-like Scrapie cases in the U.S. There's, as of the current date, there's been 12 since 2007. 6-year-old is the mean age of them. Median age is 5 years. All females. There was 8 white face, or minimally modeled, 2 modeled, 1 black, 1 soy, and 1 had clinical signs. So of the 12 NOR 98 cases, only 1 animal actually had clinical signs. And here are the genotypes for the NOR98. For non-geneticists like me, that's alphabet soup. But it gives you an idea of the distribution of the genetics on these NOR98 cases. And this is where they were discovered. This is all of them since FY 2007. Some were discovered at slaughter, some discovered during cleanup of flock, some discovered in diagnostic labs. These are the goat Scrapie cases from FY02 to FY 2011. Total of 22 goat cases. The most recent one was in California in fiscal year 2011. So this is very current. These are the indemnity claims for last fiscal year. Show you who actually what the source of the animals was that had the indemnity claim. The majority of them were non-registered sheep, and then the next 24% were registered club sheep. Total of $116,000 spent on indemnification for Scrapie investigations. Average cost about $159 per animal. That is cost paying for the animal and the disposal cost of that. Here's our slaughter sample collections for last fiscal year. 155 collection sites, that's pretty good. 36 states. 14 diagnostic laboratories do collections for us also. And these are the stars are the states with the actual collection sites. So they're pretty well distributed throughout the U.S. And so here's the samples collected by month from 2009 to the present time. So you can see that I guess June is from March through October, November, December. So it looks like January, February is very low months for the slaughter surveillance collections. Less animals go into slaughter at that time. Is there a reason for that? Okay, and here's the slaughter samples collected. Again, this is last fiscal year, state of collection. You can see a couple of states are collecting quite a few samples for us. Some states less. The largest number of samples was 100,000 in one of the Midwestern states. This is the state of tag. So this is actually where they were collected, and this is where they came from. And again, the Midwest, northern plain states is where most of the animals are coming from. Even the collection site in Texas, a large number of states come from the Dakotas. A large number of the animals come from the Dakotas. Number of positive samples, again by state of origin. Again, Midwest, Northern Plains. Our numbers that we're collecting in Texas have gone down in the last couple of years because of that. So basically, each state is assigned a target number to collect based on some estimate of the population within that state, and maybe I should rephrase that. A target number to be collected from that state of origin, not at that state. So when they collect at slaughter, the tags are traced to the state of origin for the animal, and each of those states has a target for collection. And so this is the percent success rate of collecting those target numbers. And so you can see some states have had pretty good success rate, others much less. The more flocks you have, the higher your target is. And this is the percent of sheep sampled that were positive for classical Scrapie from 2008-2010. The shaded states have collected fewer than 2,000 samples during that time. The solid color states have collected more than 2,000. These are the surveillance samples collected at slaughter again for the fiscal year to the present. And you can see that the numbers have gradually gone up with our slaughter collections. I think that's increased emphasis. We find new sources. Just last year in Texas, we found a new place to collect samples for us. Not a very large place, but they get three or four a month sometimes, and that adds to the numbers. So as you find places to collect, then it increases those numbers. One of the disadvantages I think we have in Texas, maybe the other states have the same thing, is a large number of our older animals going to slaughter go to Mexico, and so we get no slaughter collection. So we get no. There's no way to target those animals for data. These are the percent collected that were positive for classical scrapie by face color. So you can see most of them were blackface. Doesn't include the NOR 98 cases. And these are the ones that tested positive for classical scrapie by face color during the fiscal year. So this is percent. And again, blackface has a much higher percent positive for scrapie. So here's the rolling average of percent classical scrapie, blackface sheep sampled and slaughtered, and you can see it's steadily gone down, which is what we want. Investigations. This shows that the untraceables are fewer. So I think maybe our ID system, our slaughter surveillance system, we're keeping better records and better able to track the sources of the animals. Okay, for this current fiscal year, since October, these are the current investigations. We had 6 classical scrapie detected. 6 were traced back to their flock of origin. So we had 6 newly discovered infected or source flocks. So because we've succeeded in tracing all those, there's no investigations currently pending.
Do you know what happened with those 6 source flocks?
I sure don't. I don't know the specifics on them. Our registered premises in the Scrapie National Generic Database. These are the blue is the total premises, and the white is the number of premises that were assigned official tags at the end of each year. So these are the premises IDs that are in the database, and these are the ones that were given tags. Let me see if there's another note on that. They changed the query to exclude non-producer premises types. Previous years, when they presented this stats, the total premises might be dealers, slaughter plants, any place that was registered in the Scrapie database. This year, they've excluded those, so this represents basically the producers, the people who are actually raising sheep, or claim to be. And these are the percentage of flocks reported by NAS that have flock identification numbers based on the current database numbers. So you can see that we have a very low percentage in Arizona, up to 100% in some states. These are the goat herds. Again, these are the ones that, based on the NAS numbers of goat herds and the numbers assigned premise IDs, this is the percentage. Again, you got a low percentage in the red states and a higher percentage in the gray, bluish gray states. So this is the summary of the premises: 91,000 sheep premises. 81,000 sheep premises. 99% assigned flock ID numbers. That makes traceability a lot easier. 152 goat, 47% assigned flock ID numbers. So 92% supposedly have ordered their ear tags. Now again, that's based on the numbers assigned. Sometimes you guys probably know that you may have a premise registered, but they may not have any animals. They may have not started yet, or they may have sold out. The Scrapie Flock Certification Program, again, these are participating flocks as of February 28th. Texas, we had 30. You can see some states had large numbers. California's got a pretty good chunk. Pennsylvania, 141. I think we had, since this slide was prepared, I think we've had 2 or 3 flocks in Texas that have dropped out. And again, it's kind of the reasons I gave you before. The owner's elderly, he's getting tired, doesn't want to do it anymore, so he sells out his animals. Some people can't find help. They can't find workers to help them with their flocks, so they decide to sell out and go with something else. And of these, there's 900 complete monitored, 53 export monitored. Open statuses for the Scrapie Flock Certification Program. 2011, we've got a larger number certified. You can see the numbers have gone up over the years. Since the export program started in 07, I think, late 07, you can see a slight increase, but it kind of holds steady. So far, I think many of at least producers in Texas don't see the advantage of the export certification program because they're not exporting, other than to Mexico, and Mexico for slaughter animals doesn't care. So for FY 2011, the National Program staff have revised the surveillance plan, and it's posted on the website. Major points would be that those states that have the slaughter collection sites will continue to sample all targeted sheep and goats. They'll have the minimums again, as we mentioned before. And here's the stats that they use. It's 20% of the number required to detect Scrapie prevalence of 0.1% with 95% confidence, or 1% for the breeding flock in the state, whichever is less. But anyway, the idea is to detect a Scrapie prevalence of 0.1% with 95% confidence. And we got those last October. We got the new sample numbers. I think most states were happy that their numbers were reduced to a level that they could probably meet. All states, I think, are actively seeking places to collect samples. The problem is you find a place to collect the samples may be from another state. Just because you find we got a slaughter plant in Texas a couple of years ago that got into business, and like I mentioned, many of their animals come from the Dakotas. So even though we've got a place to sample, we're not always getting the samples that the state particularly wants. And that's going to be a moving number. The target will change based on the stats that they get. So the goals for FY 10-11 is sampling of non-clinical goats will begin this year. Basically, the older goats originated from several states, and this is because there's been positive, Scrapie positive goats found in those states. And they have pretty good code ID rules, so you can actually trace them if you do find a positive. And then after this year, they're going to begin sampling goats in all states once they get the plans revised. So then they'll sign sampling minimums just like they do for the sheep, and they're looking for 3,000 samples nationwide to detect prevalence of 0.1% in the goat population. And states that have had a classical scrapie in goat, going back 10 years, will have a different minimums calculated based on 20% of the number of goats. And then they may change the numbers depending on what they find this year. So once states have met their minimum sampling requirements for 5 years in a row, or they've accumulated the number over whatever extended period they determine, and have not detected classical scrapie, not NOR 98, but classical scrapie, then they may be designated as a lower risk state, and will lower their sampling minimums even less. So the priorities for legislation is to publish, change the CFR to give the administrator of APHIS authority to relieve some of the requirements for sheep and goats, especially for the NOR 98, since they're not really considered a risk for transmission. Increase the flexibility of investigations. Add a generic-based approach to regulation. Right now, someone may have a total flock that's RR, but our Scrapie flock certification program does not consider that any different than any of the other flocks. So a resistant flock is not addressed in the law currently, and they would like to change that. And they'd like to further enhance the good ID requirements to bring them up to the level with sheep. That's going to be a tough thing to do, I think, but that is the goal. Meet the surveillance requirements. We're going to tighten up the definition of slaughter channels. Right now, it's kind of open. Slaughter channels is considered animals moving to slaughter, and in I think the current definition, slaughter channels could be an animal going from farm through a market to a feedlot. Can go through several steps before it gets to slaughter. So they're actually going to redefine that so there's better control over animals moving through slaughter channels, and limit the use of tattoos and implants for some of the animals, and then enhance the record-keeping requirements. And we're drafting a proposed rule for importing sheep and goats, embryos and products, to reduce the risk from scrapie. Basically, we're not quite in line with OIE guidelines, so they want to bring us up to that. And then basically they're going to use OIE standards for breeding animals. We may be able to define it as a free country or a free flock, depending on how they want to do that. And then they'll redefine the feeding for slaughter requirements, and basically take care of the embryos. One of the things that they're looking to deal with is the products for use in sheep and goats to feed, and other products, and basically reduce some of the requirements for those. If they're not on the OIE low risk list for such products, then they may have to have a surveillance program to do that. Apply prohibitions on beef and bone meal, and again, it's going to be in the BSE comprehensive rule apparently.